Hey guys, Nüffenschwander here with another Dark Souls 3 commentary. And today I want to talk about a topic that is both as old as the principle of competition, as well as absolutely up to the minute, since a new Souls game came out only 2 months ago, and a lot of new players have been joining the player base. Sometimes we like to call new and inexperienced players scrubs, and mean that as a sometimes more, sometimes less serious insult. But the word scrub is also a technical term, and the scrub mentality is what I want to talk about today, as unfortunately it yet again seems to be in full effect in parts of the community. Let me give you some examples. A bit over a week ago, uploader Neptunus Sequester uploaded a video in which he used a broken washing pole. Broken as in its durability was 0 and the weapon did very little damage, while commenting on the fights in the style of a narrated thought video. His other videos, where he showed counters to some of the more notorious weapons in the game, were highly liked. But in his washing pole video, there was a huge uproar in the comment section. How dare you use such a broken, both literally and figuratively, weapon in PvP? And even worse, how dare you use only the most effective attacks, this being the two-handed running attack and R1? And how hypocritical you are for complaining about other players spamming R1 when you do just the same. Disliked and unsubbed, you filthy tryhard. Now, while he did use the washing pole, and while he did use only those attacks that were effective in every single situation, he did not complain about anything or anyone in his commentary, but instead was talking about what mistakes people made that led to them losing against a weapon with next to no damage output. But people obviously needed to find something to accuse him of desperately. Or take Scott's videos, who you may know as DamnoHTML, in which he uses Karthus Curved Sword, or a Black Knight Glaive, or the washing pole. Oh my god, why are you using such a boring weapon and only spam R1? I'm not watching this. Or take my videos, where people see me throwing dual charms at people who buff, or using the Hornet Ring for critical attacks. People go apeshit. Or the age-old topic of reactive players, where people go militant on forums and in comment sections against players who play very patiently, dodge and space appropriately, and only attack when it's safe to do so. If you believe some of the people on the internet, all of what I just described ruins their fun when they play the game, because all you do is play to win, and you should feel bad about yourself for it. This phenomenon of players complaining about their opponents because of their gear choice and their playstyle is my topic today. And since I'm an immature son of a bitch, I chose video footage that may severely trigger my target audience, since it shows me doing pretty much everything they hate, and me just being an asshole in general. Yet all the honor debates I have witnessed in the last few weeks made me all the more want to play like this, and I also feel a little shock therapy can't do harm at times. And I want to be equally frank with my words. If you are one of the people who like to complain about how other people like to play a video game, you should know that what you're doing is very transparent. It is easily seen through, and it does not shed a good light on you. If we take this dichotomy of playing to win versus playing to have fun you make up and look at it a bit closer, there is not much substance there upon closer inspection. One of the issues with that is that it is hard to understand what you mean by playing to have fun as opposed to playing to win to begin with. Is pressing R2 on a weapon that doesn't have a good heavy attack, and most don't in Dark Souls 3, more fun than pressing other buttons on a controller? Is using a weapon that is obviously inferior to other choices more fun than a better option? Is limiting your options, for example, by not using consumables like throwing knives to finish off an opponent or dual charms to negate your opponent's buff, more fun than using all the options the game provides? Is playing in a smart way that minimizes the amount of hits you take while maximizing the amount of hits you get in on your opponent somehow unfun, while just walking into attacks you have no business getting hit by and whiffing attacks left and right is somehow super duper fun for everyone involved? I mean, it sounds good in theory, right? Over there are the tryhards who take this game much too seriously and do all it takes for them to win, while you are so noble and just want some innocent, silly little fun for everyone involved that is then ruined by those reactive, buff negating, washing pole using running attack spammers. You clearly are the good guy in this narrative, right? Well, no actually. I think the last example about reactivity, which has been the topic of quite some debates in the past already, is probably the best one to show how people who say they are playing to have fun, and who apparently have their experience ruined by people who are playing to win, aren't really telling the whole story. In fact, they are telling quite a different story than what is going on. If fun and winning are as opposed to each other as those people try to make it sound like, then it does seem perplexing that they complain when they lose against someone who plays very optimally, because winning is allegedly not their goal, so what does it matter then? It matters because there is no such thing as a player who plays to have fun as opposed to a player who plays to win. Winning is fun. You should never forget that a game is defined as an activity with clearly established win-lose conditions. And when you run your little guts cosplay in PvP, what else are you trying to accomplish than to defeat other players with it? And why would you get angry when Mr. Godhart's They See Me Rollin' L1 They Hatin' McFuckface pushes your shit in if you didn't care about losing? The fact of the matter is that when you are playing to have fun, as you say you do, you are just as much playing to win as the other guy, but your opponent maybe chooses better gear to achieve this goal, or may use that gear to a better effect. And the more clearly he outplays you, the more frustrated you become. And acknowledging that you lost because you chose less adequate means for the situation and because you lacked the skill to make use of the means you had is rather uncomfortable. It would not only mean paying respect to a player you are maybe really angry about because you lost to him, but it would also mean to realize that you need to put in quite a bit of work and practice a lot in order to come out victorious in future situations like this. But acknowledging that does not feel good, does it? And so you try to recontextualize what is happening, to create a story for yourself where you don't need to improve at all, but rather your opponent is somehow bad and he does things you should not do for some reason or other. The reason being, of course, that you lose, or at least have a hard time beating him, and you don't like losing or having a hard time beating an opponent, do you? After all, you're playing to win too. That is why we're having this debate in the first place. I already know what you're going to say now. Nif, you cancerous cunty cockburger. You don't know me, you don't know who I am and how I play, how dare you tell me I'm lying to make myself feel better? But I do know. You know why? Because, believe it or not, everyone, including me, starts out in gaming at some time. And when I started out with the Souls games, which were the first PvP games I really got into, apart from some dabbling in Counter-Strike in the past, I was the scrubbiest of scrubs for the longest time. Feel free to go through my early comment history on Reddit, where I debated and attacked good players in the same way people are doing now. It's really just a thing of history repeating itself constantly. I know how it is. To this day, I too like to play with stupid weapons like the pickaxe or the ladle in Dark Souls 2. When Dark Souls 3 came out, the first weapons I upgraded were great and ultra great weapons. And while I often could make them work somewhat against worse players with better weapons, I got shit on a lot. And even though I know better, I still get salty in those situations sometimes. It comes with the territory. But you have to realize that the game that is provided is what it is. And people who are playing to win and are using everything the game offers them are not playing the game in an incorrect way. They do not have to limit their options to help you win against them, even though your gear and maybe skill level is not up to par. It is your job to improve at the game to a point where you don't have to regularly get salty anymore, because now you win. And when you do lose, you know that it is because the Souls games are not balanced for PvP very well. And certain matchups like ultra great weapons against straight swords, for example, will always be highly uneven. That doesn't mean you should never play with suboptimal weapons. On the contrary, you will often see some of the best players in the community play with silly weapons like the ladle in Dark Souls 2, for example, because they want to challenge themselves both to have silly fun and to further improve at the game via the challenge that is imposed by their used weapon. But when you do use such a suboptimal weapon or a suboptimal attack on a weapon, the challenge comes from it being worse than your opponent's choice. You know that, and there is no sense ever in complaining about what your opponent does. It does not help you in any way, shape or form. And there is another aspect to consider here. Using bad weapons gives you an excuse to suck. Because your weapon sucks, it is clear that it was not your lack of skills with it that led to you losing, but rather the fact that your opponent was dishonorably using a better weapon against you. This kind of thinking is extremely dangerous to your progress on the way to becoming a better player. Admitting your weapon is shit when it is a good thing. Using that as an excuse for losing and not practicing more is not. This is the insight that I want you to take away from this. No amount of complaining on players' Steam profiles in the YouTube comment section or on Reddit will change anything ever, and neither will making excuses. It might make you feel good for the moment to express your oh so righteous wrath and maybe even get some assurance by your fellow scrubs. Not meant as an insult, but in the sense of the technical term. You working on yourself, practicing a lot, and acquiring comprehensive knowledge about the tools and mechanic in this game, however, will make all the change you could ever hope for. And on the topic of uploaders, it often is the high amount of practice and knowledge they have in the context of the game that leads to them using very optimal weapons. It might be hard for you to imagine, but for quite a lot of people it is much more enjoyable to see a good player use a good weapon very optimally, rather than using a bad weapon and getting frustrated and salty. You spamming their comment sections with insults will, again, not change anything, because they see through your motivations very easily. It is incredibly rewarding to dig into a game like one of the Souls games and their PvP, to practice your ass off, and to see after a while how your efforts have paid off. Don't take that away from yourself by following your own scrub mentality that only leads to feeling good now, but gives you no perspective for the future. It does mean you're going to have to make some compromises. You will have to learn that some weapons are simply better than others, and that some attacks like R1s and running attacks are the way to go on most of them in most situations. It's just how the game is designed. And you will have to realize that using good weapons and good attacks on those weapons, that using options like throwing knives and dual charms for their intended purposes might incite some serious anger in your position. but it is also nothing but smart in an environment where, if we're honest with ourselves and others, everyone is playing to win. And I can't think of anything more fun than using very optimal gear against someone who is doing the same and then winning against him because I was the more skilled player in that situation. Yes, winning isn't everything, but it is damn fun, isn't it? Have a good one, guys. See ya.